Hang on. Okay, we're starting. Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse. This is the second episode of our Calamari Boys look at the Netflix series Squid Game. And I'd like to introduce you to my fellow Calamari Boy, Mr. Hot Toys himself. As how are you today, sir?
I'm great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, and I'm really excited to talk about this episode of Squid Game. It's one of my favorites of the 9 episodes of the show. I really think it on one hand, it's got that classic, let's tell you the backstories of the characters, but on the other hand, there's many twists and turns in this episode. Things you might expect to have happened that don't happen, including a very big plot twist that I didn't see coming. And I think it leads to the title of this episode, Hell.
Hell.
So, you know what, as this episode begins, one of the things I love about this show is this kind of, obviously, the Squid Game is introduced as a child game, children's childhood game that you play. But also the colors, the playground settings, all of the other games, they all hark back to childhood. And the surreal nature of juxtaposing adults in these sort of childhood settings is a wonderful motif, I think. But I have to say, this episode begins with something I found incredibly disturbing. You showed 6-scale versions of these, but we have our red-clad, faceless PlayStation PlayStation button-faced guards bringing in all of the dead contestants from the previous episode in what look like beautiful, mostly dead, these beautiful presents that also hark back to 456's present he gave his daughter, with the big bow on it in the previous episode. But they bring their,
and later on there's a small box which looks exactly the same, which contains the winners.
Yes,
of the
it does. And it's I mean, it's so disturbing, even though you're watching this and it's so deliciously entertaining. But how did you feel when this episode opens with these guards bringing in, like you pointed out, people who are not entirely dead and cremating these bodies?
Well, in some respects, it's great because you see the practical nature of how they dispose of the bodies, and underneath all of this, there's a big crematorium, and the coffins are present boxes, which is sick. But the whole premise is this is a game,
right?
You play some games with us, win some money. So it's sick, it's disturbing, it's wonderful.
Yes, it is,
because it continues the whole theater of it, and as we can see, the coffins are being placed into incinerators, and the contestants are being incinerated, the dead ones, and then we see some poor guy's hand just creeping over the end, and you can hear him go,
it's like Austin Powers. I'm still alive here. Yeah, I'm in horrible pain.
And instead of receiving any medical attention or being summarily offed, he's literally just had his hand rammed back into the coffin. It's closed down, and then some guy nails it shut. And that guy is going into the incinerator half dead, and that is awful to even contemplate.
Yes, it is.
But it was disturbing but great. Like I said, it showed the mechanics, the legit mechanics of what goes on, and as we'll discover later, there's another aspect to that. There are a lot of themes in this show about ownership of body, ownership of, I guess, you,
right,
in a way. And this is the first kind of step into, well, when you're done, you're done. You have no ownership of yourself, and
No.
and that ownership completely becomes ours, and we shall decide how we deal with you, and in what manner. But I mean, it's a great aftermath to the ending of the first episode, when we just see the massacre which happened, and then the shock of the contestants, and then the closing of the roof, and then that was it. And then it's just like, wow, what happens next? Well, what happens next is we collect the bodies and we burn them.
All 255 dead players.
255. And it was good, though, because you saw the whole mechanics of it. It wasn't like you saw a couple of people throwing coffins in. You saw forklifts.
Oh, yeah.
You saw pallets of coffins.
This is industrial. This is the industrialization. This is the disposal of bodies. And I have to say, I couldn't help but it in a way it harks back to some of the things in the 20th century. Like, I couldn't help, being raised a Jew myself, thinking about once people have been gassed in the showers with Zyklon B, those bodies had to be disposed of, and then they would take them and cremate them, and the smokestacks of human remains spewing into the atmosphere. I mean, it just was indicative of any kind of, we don't really think about the fact that you think about the Rwandan massacre. There's dead bodies that have to be dealt with, and this is just very methodical. No one's talking. It's very just matter of fact. Matter of fact. Well, there we go. You're back. It was just matter.
Hello. Okay.
It was just It's like that. So you would start talking about the.
I know. As soon as you mention.
I know that
certain product.
but it
goes.
I mean, it was it was evocative of so many different things, but also it also was world building, in the sense that you realize that this is just par for the course. It's the first indication that this has been going on for quite some time. This is not just some new thing they set up. I mean, I got the idea that these people are very practiced at this. This is something that happens, and these are professionals.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled machine. Mm-hmm. And what a way to open an episode. I mean, come on.
When you can't talk without permission, and when you are faceless, it's so easy to dehumanize what you do.
Yep, absolutely. And yet they're still good at their jobs. They take pride in their work, I guess.
Yeah, in a way, I guess.
But then after that, I mean, and again, one of the things I think about the show, which is it's so interesting, is rather than, I mean, they just throw you into these things, and there's the way it's done. There's no judgment. They're just showing you this, and they're allowing you to draw your own conclusions. And that's one of the things that's what I really love about it.
The music is the boop, 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 boop. It's got the happy kind of music going on while they do it. I sort of viewed it in a way as a sick and twisted Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
Type. I see the guards as kind of like the Oompa Loompas, and we gonna burn some bodies for you. It's like, just kind of felt a little bit like that with the music going on. It was like sick and twisted Oompa Loompas.
Where would you end when you lose the game?
Devoid of money and any of fame.
Dude, I think your next techno song is going to rise up the charts.
Yeah. Squid Game.
Ocean Man does a Weird Al Yankovic cover of the Oompa Loompa song.
Oh my lord! Oh no! But yeah, there's no judgment, because we have. I mean, we're not onto the judgment side yet. We're not onto the judging of it. We're simply onto the pragmatic element of what they signed up for.
Yep.
Literally signed up for in the previous episode, which was to play a game. Elimination, though, which they didn't realize meant death.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is after this sequence, then we come back and we meet the surviving players. We come back and we're really sort of it focuses on, okay, we've got this core group. You've got the immigrant, you've got the pickpocket, you've got a gangster, you've got the apparently successful securities trader, stockbroker, and you've got 456. That, it was interesting that they chose to give us 456's story first. We're following one person, but now we're this core group of characters that we're following is then sort of established in the following scene, and they do something really interesting that I totally didn't expect, which was all of the people in the game are offered this choice. And you talked about this last week, and I wasn't expecting that. Were you expecting that these players could be they're offered a choice?
Well, I try to think of things in a logical way, and I said to myself, if they don't call for a vote now, this is stupid. It would be stupid because they've just seen 255 people massacred, and the game, the show doesn't treat you as an idiot at any point in time.
No.
And all the decisions that are made, and there's a decision that's made in this episode,
a big one,
which has huge consequences later on, and it's so flippantly done, and it's so brilliantly done. The show doesn't treat you like a buffoon. It doesn't say, hey, look, we're going to try and suspend your disbelief for this bit to get you to this point. It never does that.
No.
At all. And to have them sat in silence was perfect, because I think everyone would just be in shock. They just found a place to sit down, and they sat down, and you saw that they kind of ended up sitting down with, people that they might have just clicked with during the game. As we saw, 456 with Sang-geun, and then also with Ali. So those were the three major players in our initial game. And then, when the guards came in to congratulate them, and I think all the guards really came in to do was say, congratulations, here's the money.
Well, that was the crazy thing. I mean, you had, 255 dead players, and each person's worth, 100 million won or something? Yeah. So you're now up to like 2.5 billion won. I mean, in case you forgot, kids, what's at stake, what you're playing for. Let's show, every time. And what's funny is they would sometimes cut to the reaction shots where people are watching this money fall down, and you realize that they're like, maybe it's worth it. I might stick around. And of course, that's, as we learn later in the episode, they all have to. They're at this. The episode is called Hell, and I would think here it starts out. What I really did like about the crematorium scene is it felt like you were in hell. Like it's the underworld. It's underneath wherever they're playing, and these minions are dressed as if they're demonic in a way, these faceless. I could see that there's a version of hell where there's just the Squid Game guards, these faceless guards, but there's nobody in them. There's no faces underneath. They're just demonic entities. If you're a damned soul, you get to be in the hell crematorium for the rest of your life. So in a way, it's kind of hell. But then it says no, this isn't hell, because we know what's going on here. It's the real world. It's the world you people are living in. Even though you've been through a massacre of 255 people, here's some more money. Here's a little. Let's dangle some more carrot at you. Come on.
Well, it's interesting because he congratulates them on surviving the first game, and then we suddenly get the women's. We get like three women come forward and just start begging. Begging for their lives, and I'll find a way to pay my debts. I promise. Please don't kill me. And the cast is like, we're not here to hurt you. Well, you kind of are. You kind of are, really. We're not here to hurt you. We're playing a game,
right?
And then people start saying very specific things because it's a clever show, and there are people just saying, "What if I refuse to play anymore?" And it's like, well, clause 2 of the contract says if you refuse to play, then kablamo.
Yeah.
And then Sang-geun, the businessman. He, of course, has read the contract thoroughly and taken it in. So he says, but clause 3 says if we take a unanimous vote and people vote to leave, then the games are over. And the guards just like, yeah. But before we do, because you are correct, before we take the vote, let me just show you the prize money from the first game. Then 25 billion won, which is like, I think $25 million or something daft, pours into the literally the piggy bank above. And then suddenly people who are crying on the ground begging for their lives are like, oh, actually seeing it in the person, this is maybe actually worth going for.
Not so bad. Yeah. And, there's something in a way, I love the cynicism of it all. The fact that, we did just watch a massacre, but maybe a little bit more money can change your mind.
Well, I mean, look, those people are there because they are down, desperate, destitute, broke, in debt, literally at their wits' end. And, these are people who have had I'm going to sneeze, sorry. These are people who have had their faces smashed,
repeatedly.
Slapped repeatedly to earn essentially pittance. Essentially pittance, £10 a game or whatever it equated to be.
Sure.
Which wasn't a lot at all. And they were prepared to do that for that money. And now looking up at $25 million in cash. And like, well, if they're all kind of like red light, green light, and now we know if you fuck up your loot, you're dead. I could maybe squeeze through another 5 of these games, but
well, yeah, and it's interesting. So the stakes are there. We all know, and I think all of us. What's interesting is at this point, I think we all as audience members, I'm like, would I stay? What I loved about this game, and what I love about great entertainment always puts the audience in the mind of the protagonists. Like, at any one moment, are the protagonists in whatever you're watching, you're always asking yourself, would I do that? And that's part of great storytelling, and I think that part of the thing about this game is it makes the audience sort of a participant, because
yes.
you are asking yourself at any one moment, would I do this?
Yeah, exactly. Which is very clever.
Very clever.
Because even if a protagonist or a certain character takes a different or a counterpoint of view, you can still play in your head, would I have done that?
Would I have done it?
And would I have done it? Would I have hit red? Would I hit green? Would I stay? Would I go?
And I think that's I think that's why this show has caught on the way it's caught on, because it crosses international boundaries, it crosses language boundaries, and because of the survival aspects of it and the money aspects of it, for all of its...
Are you trying to say that you don't have to see a physical manifestation of yourself to actually be able to understand and empathize with what's going on the screen?
I think so, and that would
be
that would be called...
I didn't realize I was streaming with a bigot.
I think great storytelling allows any audience member to empathize or understand the plight of a character. It doesn't matter if the character is male, female, young, old, a child, an elderly person. Great storytelling allows any audience member to empathize and understand the plight of that character. That's what storytelling is all about. The whole point of storytelling is to be able to tell the story of somebody that's other than you.
Correct.
Bring you in and have you sympathize, or even if it's an anti-hero, like one of my favorite movies is A Clockwork Orange. I do not sympathize with Alex DeLarge, but I like his character as an anti-hero in that story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think storytelling is great. And this idea that and I've always felt that way. Like, I'll watch stories about anybody if they're good. There's no story, there's no person, there's no gender, there's no religion, there's no color, there's no historical figure. I will watch any story about anyone if the story's good. It's all character and story.
There are 2 main female characters in the show. If you can't empathize with their situations, I don't know what's wrong with you. And there is a gangster, a horrible gangster in this show, and you can empathize with him as well. Once the game essentially turns into a primal survival of the fittest,
and we didn't.
Which it will devolve into.
Yeah, what's really interesting is because no one knew what the game was. Now it's that devolution has begun.
Yes,
you know, and I think the funny thing about this vote that they're about to take is you'd think that everybody, like my initial impulse would be like, okay, our stockbroker character, who's supposedly, I guess, the most successful, I look at him as the most successful person that's actually playing the game, and you're wondering why he's playing the game.
Yes.
That becomes a big question. Well, you know, we're asking ourselves like, oh, okay, we still have an opportunity to end this. And you would think that everybody would just say, yep, let's end the game. Like everybody would say.
Well, I mean, I personally think he has the craziest journey of any character. He has a rise, a fall, a rise and a fall, a rise and a fall, and a fall and a rise.
Yes.
In the show, his character is so. It's not as base as you think. The complexity of the character is so nuanced.
And then, then the vote is called.
The vote is
called,
called,
and it's really surprising to see, especially what does the stockbroker vote for? I think he votes to continue.
He votes,
playing.
yeah.
He votes to continue because again, the money is worth the risk. I keep thinking about the line, Val Kilmer's line in Heat, when they talk about whether they should rip off the bank. And Val Kilmer's the one that says the money is worth the risk. I need it, brother.
Yeah.
And the stockbroker to me was like Val Kilmer. You know, he votes to continue the game. And so here's what I thought, which was surprising. The vote is completely deadlocked, and there's one remaining person to vote, and it's our old man. It's who's terminal. She has terminal brain cancer, and I would have thought that what does he care? You know, why doesn't he? You know, but he doesn't vote to continue playing.
That shocked me because when it was deadlocked, I thought, oh no, he's got nothing to lose. He's gonna vote to continue. But when he voted no, let's end the games, and therefore the majority did vote to end the game, I was just like, now what's the show gonna do? And then the show just went, okay, you're free to go. And I was like, what happens now?
And then this is why another reason I think people have gravitated to this show, because it doesn't do what you'd expect, you know. And then everybody kind of is basically dumped back in town where they were picked up, but sort of unceremoniously. They're kind of thrown out and they're thrown out like
the garbage they are.
The human refuse that they are. And you know, I love the fact that this episode in a way is titled Hell, because what's interesting about everything is so well, I mean, the game is run with military precision. You've got military bunks, you've got guards, you have everything is done in a very orderly fashion, and then you get dumped into the real world, and the real world is the hell of the title. You know, the real world is this is it. I mean, you trade one hell for another, and which hell is better? Which hell is more endurable? And I would say perhaps
one hell is of creation, another hell is of your creation.
Yes.
So and there's two hells, but which is worse?
And that's the question. And I think that's again the putting the audience in the protagonist's point of view. Now, once you're away, I think this is another brilliant thing. Once you're away, like if you were a protagonist in this situation and you get dumped back on the sidewalk, you've been given your life back. You can do anything you want, and then watching what these characters end up doing is fascinating, because you're asking yourself, well, if I was that person, I'm not a gangster, but if I was, what would I do? You know, and then you find out about our beautiful North Korean expat, you know, refugee, and we see what 456 does, and it's fascinating. How did you feel?
Well, I mean, when 456 gets dumped off with 67, this is, again, I have to keep stressing it. This is a show that's very intelligent, and this is a show which is based around consequences. You know, these people are here as a consequence of their actions or a consequence of society. They're here there for a consequence. and it's led them to the game. Now, when 67 is freed and dresses and starts walking away, 456 starts screaming at her, "Hey, let me go! It's freezing! It's fucking freezing out here. Cut me loose!" And she says, "Why would I cut you loose? If I cut you loose, you're going to start coming after me for the money that I stole off you." And he's like, "No. Look, cut me free, and I promise I'll forget it. Okay? Look, I promise on my mum's life I'll forget it." So she cuts him free, and he goes for her. And he promised on his mother's life not to. This is a show about consequence. And that consequence will come back at the end of the game. Because he has broken his word. And in breaking his word in this world, he's essentially evoked the penalty for that consequence.
And invoking his mother's name was not too smart, buddy.
No, so it's not a huge. When I say not a huge thing, because the character doesn't appear that much, but it's a consequence of his actions here. So this show, you have to be very aware of what you're gonna do or what you're attempting to do.
And what's great is that it seems like when he goes after her, it's another thing. Like, of course he would, because she took a lot of money from him. So why wouldn't he?
But you also, I also think to myself, what, she's gonna have that money on her? Of course she's not.
Mm-mm.
That money's long gone. It's gone. Yeah, whatever it's been used for, it's been used for. He's wasting his time. It's kind of like his old self was reasserting back in the real world. His old self of a grifter.
He hasn't learned anything.
No.
He
will.
Yes, he will.
The episode goes on. He will. And that's the great thing, because when they go back into the real world, suddenly, like, these broken characters, we start to see what they are about. We start to see their humanity and what drives them, and is it as bad as we think? And we get to learn a couple of things, and things suddenly start to get a little bit more interesting and allow us to empathize with certain characters better.
Now, let me say, as this episode goes along and you find out the plight of these characters and you bring up consequences, a lot of people talk about this show being a skewering of capitalism. Do you think that's true?
I don't necessarily think it's just a skewering of capitalism. I think it's, if you're going to condemn or criticize capitalism, you've got to condemn and criticize communism in equal measure in this.
I agree with you.
Because if the game drove them there because of a capitalist society, world, whatever you want to describe it as, when they get inside the game, they're in a communistic society. They all have exactly the exact same bed, the exact same clothes, the exact same food.
with the promise of capitalistic riches at the end of it all.
But with the promise of reward, yes. But but that kind of is what communism sort of preaches. It preaches everyone, we work for everyone, but you're not. You're actually working for the totalitarian government who's taking it all, and you're living off the, as we'll see in one episode, a raw potato. The raw potato and bottle of water that you're given to eat and drink off. So yeah, when they go inside the game, it's equality and not equity.
That's right.
As well, it's equality. It doesn't matter what size you are, what gender you are. You get exactly the same portion of food per person, whatever that may be, an egg and milk, or a bun and milk, or whatever it is. And everyone gets treated the same, and the lights go out at exactly the same time, and they come on at exactly the same time, and everybody again has to compete in the games regardless of gender. There's no leeway given for size, weight,
nope,
color, gender, nothing.
Everybody has to perform according to their own strengths, and everybody has strengths somewhere.
Yeah, so if you're going to criticize capitalism, then you've got to criticize communism, because where does the communistic society get them apart from dead? Dead and in the ground, which is where, which is essentially the consequence of communism throughout the ages. It
That's
just
right.
ends in mass graves. That's what it does.
I can't wait. I keep waiting for somebody to, everyone who's screaming about Marxism and collectivism. I'm like, please show me where that worked.
Yeah, show me where it worked.
Where did it work? Please give me the utopian ideal and give me that Marxist society that continues.
Well, that's because it's never been done properly. Okay. You want to go to the library, go to the history section, read some books. Yeah, that excuse is always the one that makes me laugh. Never been tried properly.
Human beings want to excel. It's built into our DNA. We want to succeed. We want to compete, make sure that somehow we distinguish ourselves in whatever way we can. But so then we've got a lot of plot threads where we start learning about our characters. Like 456 goes to the police, tries to convince, and then we find out that his mother has been hospitalized. She has diabetes, and like she can't afford healthcare because 456 canceled the insurance to save money. So there's all of these, you can't not acknowledge, like, especially in the United States, you're looking at this, our healthcare costs are so extraordinarily expensive. We have a for-profit healthcare system, and I'm not up on, I just assumed that we're in Seoul. We could probably be in other cities. And
we are in Seoul.
I would just assume that. Yeah. And, I've been to Seoul, and I'm a big fan of Korea. I'm a big fan of that city. But, it's like any other big city. And life in the big city is tough. When the going gets tough, when the going gets hard, the tough get going. But you're reminded that 456, he's such a loser. I mean, he's such a guy that he forsook. He not only lied using his mother's name, but now you find out that he got rid of his mother's health care. And she can't get the treatment that she needs. Dude. He's a douche.
Yeah. There's the person last week said he's not a loser. Fucking is.
No, he is a loser. He's a loser.
He's a bum and he's a loser, yeah.
Yeah, and, what's funny? Look, I've known people that are addicted to gambling. I've met gambling addicts. Any kind of addiction is a horrible thing. But you can't absolve people just because they're in the grips of something like that. They have to share some kind of responsibility for the place that they're in. You can never absolve everyone of everything. There's got to be some bit of responsibility that is taken in some of these things. And in terms of 456, you keep finding out things about it. Like, what, you canceled your mother has diabetes and you canceled her health care? Like, what? Come on, dude. There's got to be a lot. No, but, addicts are willing to forsake. I remember reading, I was in college, I was reading Naked Lunch, William Burroughs' Naked Lunch, the book. And in it, there was this great concept called the algebra of need. And the algebra of need is that when you're in the grips of an addiction or something, everything that goes on is like a problem to be like a mathematical equation. How can I solve this to feed my addiction? Like everything is like, it's like an algebraic equation. Everything comes down to that. You must satisfy that addiction. There's no way around it. And
look, hey, I've been there because I used to gamble and when I was like in my early 20s, and the crazy justifications you would do. Well, let's say I got £100 on me. Well, if I spent 50 of it gambling, then I could use the other £50, and all I'd need to do is just like get food for 5 days. So you could have like £10 of food a day, and then you'd blow the 50 quid on the gambling, and you have 50 quid left. So it'd be like, well, if I took a 20 quid from this, and then I had 30 quid left, then if it's 7 days, then that's seven. 7 so that's £2. So I could, with that £2, I could get beans, I could get some bread, and you just do all these crazy justifications in your head
The
and then you
algebra
realize,
of need.
Yeah, you realize by the end of it you've gone through all the money.
Yeah.
And then you haven't even taken into consideration rent, bills,
Yeah.
any of that. Yeah. So you do make the most ridiculous justifications to yourself.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, that's what addiction does to people, and it's horrible, but it's not completely out of your control. I mean, it's just you've lost all sense of self-control and all of that. And in this case, you know, he's a douche. 4, 5, 6. I mean, he might have a good heart, but his heart is buried deep underneath massive dysfunction. But I have to say, it's you know, again, we're entertained because one of the things about this is the show, it doesn't really judge him. It allows you as an audience member, it presents these things, but we as the audience, we are the ones judging him. Mm-hmm. You know, the show isn't. The show's just, here's what's going on. What do you think about it? You know, and I think that's what great storytelling does. It has to bring you in as the audience and make you participatory in the story.
Yeah, because you have to justify the level. I mean, I personally think that he's exceedingly irresponsible as opposed to malicious.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's
I think to me that's a big distinction.
Yeah, if he was malicious, you wouldn't like him. You know, and after what he's been through, you want all these people to succeed. You know, you've been introduced to these characters and you're thinking, "Oh, maybe this core group of characters will come together and triumph in the end." Collectively, as a group. It'll be like they're a team. Maybe and you know what? In the storyline, as I'm going along watching this, I'm thinking right now in the beginning of the second episode, I'm like, yep, that could happen. These people, I'm being set up. They're all going to work together and triumph in the end. Isn't that what's going to happen?
When you get you get your core characters and you sort of think, these are the people that we're going to now be following.
Yeah.
These are going to be the main kind of group of people, and they're going to find a way probably to you know, connect.
Yeah, and then when we get unlike like Lost, where they'll spend a whole episode doing up someone's backstory, we get everybody's backstory, and like we meet number 67, our favorite North Korean refugee. We find out, we see her little brother that she's taking care of. You know, he's in some, you know, orphanage, and you find out about her backstory. They've escaped from North Korea, and she had money. She's been pickpocketing to raise money to get her, I guess, mother out, and she was ripped off. You know, I mean,
didn't she steal money from the gangster guy?
Well, yeah, but she's trying to get her parents out. You know, she was stealing money, and that's why she was a pickpocket.
No, I'm just saying. No judgment.
Oh, right, no judgment. Right.
Just saying that she also ripped off the gangster guy who's there. That's why he was giving her a good slapping at the beginning of the.
But
episode 1.
Even the gangster. I mean, you hate this guy already, but then you find out like he was sold out. You know, he was sold out, and he was sold out by.
Well, he did bad things, and he got sold out.
He owes money too. You find out he's massively in debt. Like all of these people are in debt for various reasons.
Yeah.
And he barely manages to escape, jumping in the water. You know, from these guys that want to kill him. And then we meet Ali in his civilian life. He's got a good job. He's got a wife and a kid. You know, and he goes to get the money. He's owed money that he goes back to his company that he's been working for, I guess, and the boss just isn't paying him. You know, he's working for some douche boss that's like, I'm not gonna give you your money.
I ain't got any money. The other boys, they haven't been paid either.
Yeah, I mean, it's and he's like, but that's not my fault. I did the work, and boy, let me tell you, I've been there. I'm like, bro, I did the work for you. You guys owe me a check. It's net 90. You'll get it in 3 months.
I've been in recruitment. I've had the boss come to and say, "Hey, we're getting in the car. We're driving to some businesses to collect some money." So I've been there.
Were you the muscle ass? Were you muscle?
I was the guy that just stood there when it knocked on some doors.
Yep. And of course,
which I wasn't too happy with. Can I just stress for the record?
They probably didn't ask you either. They just did ask you. But what happens with Ali, man? That was there was, the boss. There's a big fight in front of everybody else, and his boss gets his hand.
Well, that's because the boss is telling he's got no money. He's got a big envelope,
big old wad
stuffed of cash on his desk. Which when he realizes Ali sees, he just puts it into his pocket. It's like, I gotta go. I got stuff to do. Bye.
But see, now this is a point where I'm like, okay, we talk about whether this is skewering capitalism or not. To me, here's a situation where somebody's done an honest day's work. You're working for a company. You've agreed to be paid a certain amount of money for this. And this guy, like, I don't necessarily think capitalism as a system is bad. It's the perversion of capitalist, the capitalist system by all the people that are. I mean, human beings are horrible people. We're bad people. If we can cut corners and do something. By the way, Joshua Levesque, one of my mods, sends in a hot dog.
What?
So, but I think that this guy immediately, like, you realize that, okay, sometimes, at least for me.
I would disagree. I don't agree with you at all here.
Really?
I don't think we're intrinsically bad.
Well, okay.
We do bad things, but I don't think we're developed or built or come out intrinsically bad.
No. I don't.
People come out intrinsically good.
No, I don't think that. What I was saying is that people can. No, I don't think we're all bad, but I think people do pervert capitalism. Like this guy, he's a boss, and he knows that his employees are owed money, and he's got money, and he's not paying them for whatever reason. So the thing is, it's not like these. In Ali's case, he's an immigrant. He's a hardworking guy. He's being taken advantage of. It's not like he's not a degenerate gambler. He just wants to get paid what he's owed. Because he has to pay for his wife and kid, and the person he's working for is the douche. Like, no, I'm not going to pay you. No one's paid. And then he doesn't seem too concerned about it. No, I don't think we're intrinsically bad or good or either way, but I think that people can pervert the capitalist system because everyone's a greedy fuck. Maybe not everybody.
I think there's definitely bad eggs, and there's definitely perversion of capitalism. That's why we have mega corporations.
But I think with Ali, you sympathize with this guy because he just wants what he's owed. Unlike 456,
and he's lost a couple of fingers due to work by the looks of it, which he hasn't been compensated for because he said he didn't have the money to pay for the medical bills for his fingers, so it looked like he amputated them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny to me. He's a good person, unlike say 456, and he's doing the work, and yet he also isn't being paid. So it's the flip side in the way of what 456 has experienced, that Ali's doing what he's supposed to be doing, and the people he's working for are the ones that have put him in the position he's in, that force him to want to play the game. And it's I think what's really interesting is all of these people, even the pickpocket, she is shown as, I forget the names. I mean, she's number 667. Even all of her motivation is shown to be she's just trying to help her little brother and her family. So even though she's resorted to crime, you completely sympathize with her, just like you sympathize with Ali. I mean, they're truly good. The gangster's a dick, but you still understand when he gets betrayed by his friends. So in a way, and then we meet, I forget I don't know how we find out that our stockbroker, Sang-woo, number 218, when he's got that great moment where he goes into his bathtub and he gets in the bathtub with a drink and he's in his suit, and I love that image because what's more perverse than a really well-dressed business person getting into a bathtub with a bottle of booze
I thought he was killing himself.
Oh, it really?
Because he put that block on the heater.
Right. That's true.
Which I thought might have been producing something like carbon monoxide or something like that. He's drinking in the bath. So he's dressed in his suit.
Yeah, you're right. I never thought about that.
And he's drinking in the bath. And I think that he was meant to drift away, and that would be it. I thought he was attempting to.
You know what? I think you're right about that because that's why he agreed. That's why he voted to play the game more because unless he wins, he's at the end of his rope anyway.
Well, he says when he speaks to 456, he says that I haven't just bet the futures and all of that. I've bet my mum's house, and her business,
which is also
that rests upon everything that he's lost as well.
Now, what do you think about the fact that these two characters, these childhood friends, both sold out their mothers?
Oh, I mean, it's awful. I'd never do that to my mother. I wouldn't, because you have to look at it from that point of view. But if you look at it, they've both done it from different ends of the spectrum. One of them was highly educated, got into big business, and fucked up big business. Whereas one of them, well, we later on when we do find out why 456 is a little bit damaged. Later on in another episode, where he could potentially be suffering from PTSD, but he's down and out and a gambler. So the two completely different. I guess it's saying it doesn't really matter which side of the spectrum you're on. People are people, and the way that people behave again has a consequence to that action. And
yep.
The other one was so sure of himself that he bet everything, including his mum's house and business. And the other one, he's forsaking his daughter and his mom, so him and his friend can go down and gamble, and he's still in debt with the bookies, so he's not as if he's even winning anything there. It's his absolute wits end stuff, and that's the point. The show's not trying to say, look, they could just say, hey, do you know what? I'm going to go down to McDonald's and get a job tomorrow and everything's going to be all right. It's not going to be all right.
No.
It's not going to be all right at all. That's not going to solve your problems, because you're so ingrained in what you've been doing. You're so deep in what you've been doing. The game is the quick fix solution that they need to get out of all the trouble that they're in. Like, he wins the game, he pays off his creditors, he pays off the futures, he pays off his mum's house and business. He's got millions of dollars left over, no problem. 456 wins. He can pay off his mum's medical bills. He can start a new life with his daughter. It offers an instant solution to complete and utter redo. And they don't have that option in the real world.
No, and what's interesting, too, is what I've always loved about these kinds of stories. I mean, look, whenever the lottery in America, the Powerball, I remember the Powerball was beyond $1 billion at one point, like 2 or 3 years ago. $1 billion. And you can't help but I think everybody, if you're aware of it, everybody takes some time, and we think we have our finite lifespans. If you had $1 billion, you could literally indulge any dream that you ever had,
Absolutely.
And that has not been what human life has been about since we came out of the trees. But there's something irresistible about that idea. And look, we buy lottery tickets. People buy lottery tickets or playing the lottery with the hope that one day your ship will come in.
Tax.
Yeah, and you'll that's right. You'll win that money, and you'll be able to indulge all of your fantasies or buy the things you want or help your family or whatever it is you want to do with all that money. And that, I think that idea is very pervasive throughout the world. Like, one day, if I could only solve all my problems, because literally most people, if you had $1 billion, you could solve all of your problems with a few phone calls, I would imagine. You just put all the money in the bank, pay your debts, you're done. And then you'd be like, then I'm going to go to the car dealership and buy my first Lamborghini. And I understand that. I would, unlike some people, I think you and I would first go to Toys Wonderland.
No. I'd buy a big enough house that I could go to Toys Wonderland.
No, because
then
you know what?
We would go to Toys Wonderland.
No, you go to Toys Wonderland first, because the time it would take to ship the stuff there, you'd already have, because you could walk in and literally
Where
buy.
do you need it shipping to? Oh no! Now it's getting really complicated. I'll just buy the shop.
You know what I would really do? I've always wanted to own a pub. I've always wanted to have a bar. I'd call it Toy Bar, and one side of the bar would just be all Modja cases, and I'd take my entire collection and put it in the bar with great seats and everything, and then I would have the bar, because I'd be the bartender, opposite my Modja cases, so I'd just be looking at my figures all day long.
All day. I've always wanted to have like a coffee games comic kind of place where you could come in, you can pick some comics up from a rack, you can buy yourself a soda or a coffee or a water, whatever, sit down, read them. Another section, you've got video game consoles in cases so you can play on the screens. In the back, you got some pool, you got some, pool tables. In another, maybe even have a mini theater for some classic movies going on. That's what I'd like to do. And just,
I'd love that.
Not even for when I say not even for profit, just make it a place that people want to go to,
Yeah, a community center. I mean, it'd be
affordable, really, really affordable prices.
I'm right there. I would do exactly the same thing. Although I would, if I had $1 billion, I would finance a slate of pictures of movies. I would finance a slate, so I would have 10 movies I could make for the rest of my life, and then I'd ask my friends. I'm like, hey man, how'd you like to make 5 $10 million movies? Here you go. Here's the money.
Get some cosplay competitions going. Bang some really fit fucking chicks,
I just want to make movies, really. That's the movie thing, so I don't have to look for money anymore, and just make like 5 or 10 movies I really wanted to make. That's what I would do. And then have my bar community center with the most kick-ass home theater, ultimate Dolby Atmos. I'd spend like $1 million, and
I just want to abuse my power and privilege to get puss. Is that what I want to do?
You know what? That's good, but I think you'd want to build something with that money.
No, I am being flippant, and
I know, but so so what's really interesting is that all of these characters, we now have insight into them, and I think even the gangster, you might not necessarily sympathize with him, but at least you understand that he's not even on the outside, he's still kind of a punk. He thinks he's a legend in his own mind, but
when was the first time you sympathized for the gangster?
Probably in the scene where you find out that he too is in debt. That he's been trying to run out on his obligations to other people. Like, I hated that guy because of, what's really interesting is is it 61? She's this beautiful girl that
67.
67. I liked her because at first I'm like, okay, she's a beautiful woman, and why is this guy treating her badly? So I didn't like him. But when I don't know if I totally felt sympathy for him, but at least I had some insight into where, like, he puts on a big show, all kinds of bluster, but in the real world, the people that he used to work with or whatever, he's a chump too. He's in trouble. He borrowed money he can't pay back or whatever it is that he did. They don't really go into everything he's done, but to the point where they were going to kill that guy, or at least I assume.
Oh yeah, he was going to get killed by the Filipino mob or whatever.
Yeah, he was going to get killed, and they would have taken his organs and sold his organs probably on the black market, and so I did feel sympathy for him. Like when he jumped into the water, I'm like, all right, this guy suddenly. They set him up, because I'm going by standard Hollywood tropes. They set him up as being a guy that was a dick, but like, ooh, maybe he's not such a dick. I have sympathy for this man now. And
I'll tell you when mine was. Episode 1.
Yeah.
When they're in the game, when they're red light, green light, and those guns are going off, and he's flinching away at when those guns are going off.
Mm.
And you felt genuine. I felt genuine fear and terror because of the realization of what the game was. When people, realized what the game was about, and they were trying to participate in it, to me that put a completely different spin on the game. And every time a shot was fired from the snipers, he just, and every time, if you keep an eye on him throughout the course of the show, every time a gun goes off, he flinches. every time.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have, but it was, to me, it was later. It had to have been when, I finally got some insight into him. But I can, that makes perfect sense to me.
So I just thought, and again, this was a creation of the show, which is great that it leaves it to you. But to me, it's like, we don't know how he fell into gang life.
Nope, that's right.
I mean, it's so easy to judge him saying, well, he's a gang lieutenant. This is a guy with power and underlings that's been put in a position of power in this gang, and he's abused it. He's stolen money. He's gone off gambling. He's lost it. His boss has found out. Now his boss has, grassed him up to the Filipino casinos, and they're coming to collect. And but then when you see the kind of terror that he had in the shooting, you're like, where does that stem from? Does that stem from when he was a kid? Does that stem from a violent life that pushed him into... Maybe
his dad killed his mother with a gun? You don't know.
But that's the beauty of the show. Like you said, it allows you to formulate your own opinions. It doesn't judge. The show doesn't judge this guy.
Right. It just presents the situation.
He gets the consequence of his action, because the consequences of your actions in this show come back, and he's a victim of his own consequences. But no, the show does not judge him. It does not judge anyone. The only thing that it stresses is you're all absolutely down and out and in crippling debt, which you cannot get out of. That's the only constant.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you're watching all this stuff, and then because we know him, they keep going back to 4, 5, 6. He's kind of like, we're now seeing, we've sort of veered away from him and see the plight of these other characters, but then we always keep going back to 4, 5, 6. He's kind of become the spine, it's carrying us along. And what I thought was really interesting about him is he goes back and he's escaped death. 255 people are dead. He's alive. He's still trying to borrow money. He tries to borrow money from a friend, and then he goes to his ex-wife, the mother of his child. He goes to her house.
But I have to stress the but. This is not money for him now. He's trying to borrow money for his mother's
that's
operation.
True. That is true. But still,
so there's a different. Even though he's doing what he does, which is beg for money,
right?
It's now not a selfish reason. It's to help his mom.
But that's because because
of his own.
Yeah, and also he's seen close up. Now his mother's life is at stake. And it's his fault. So now, I still don't see this as necessarily redeemable, because this is a situation he created in the first place that he's still trying to make better. But yes, I could see, okay.
But she doesn't die because of that. Well, she does, but she doesn't. She dies because the show is about breaking your word. When you break your word, boom.
Yes, and he's already, he already promises.
Already broken to it.
But I have to say that this scene, it was painful to me when 456 goes to see his wife. His ex, because what was interesting? His ex-wife, again, this is why the show is really smart to me. That his ex-wife probably put up with a great deal. And we don't even understand what she had put up with, but we know that they got divorced, and she's now remarried, and they have a delightful daughter. But his wife probably put up with so much and was at her wit's end. And when he comes back to her, she's then forced to dude, I got out, man. I got out of this, and you are showing me nothing. You want to prove to me that you're a decent. You've already fucked up your daughter's birthday. Now you're coming to me and asking for money. I was like, because I totally got it. I was pained for him. I'm like, oh man. Of course she's not going to.
I think she wants to believe it's for his mum, but there's a part of her that's heard this all before.
Yeah, she knows. She's heard. She's absolutely heard it all before. And it was just painful. The daughter and the funny thing about it is, it's like, he's doing all these things because he just escaped death. It's not like his first impulse was like, try and get a job. It's not like we saw a montage of him going to a bunch of different jobs and applying for places.
Do.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that way. And then then it was hard. The husband, the new husband, the stepfather that's replaced him, that's obviously a great provider, and they're going to America, comes out and just throws him money.
No, he doesn't throw him money. He gives him very kindly, because
yes,
look, the way that this guy has behaved, his wife probably said, "What did he want?" And she was like, he just wanted money again. And he probably said, "How much?" And she said, he wanted $2 million, which is what, 20,000,
something like that. Yeah,
something like that. I don't know, but he wanted 2 million won, and he probably thought to himself, "Look, this degenerate gambler." This degenerate guy that keeps coming around making look, he's making an excuse that his mum's ill,
right?
To try and get money off us. If I just offer him a nice bit of cash, then maybe, just maybe, I can get him out of our lives for good. And so we don't know the number of the amount that he brought down, but he clearly brought down a substantial wad of money. And he gave it to him in good faith, and he said, "Look, here's this," and he's like, "Thank you," and he's just like, "I just want you not to see my family again."
Yeah,
because to him, and I don't think it's this guy's fault. I don't think this guy is a bad guy at all. To him, the guy in front of him has been nothing but a degenerate gambler begging for money.
Yeah, and if anything's going to hurt his adopted daughter. At the end of the day, you already fucked up her birthday. When is it going to end? How and he probably has been dealing with the aftermath and the fallout of that relationship for years anyway himself. And like you said, yes, I when I say throw him money, I mean I meant it was just, but he was kind about it. And they're all going to America to they know he's going to escape that guy's clutches or whatever. 4, 5, 6, and they can be away from him. But he is, in a way, he was, I suppose, trying to be kind, saying, "Okay, go deal with your problems." He didn't have to do that, but he did. But still, 4, 5, 6. Now he decides, well, I'm not going to take your money.
Yeah, it's a weird time to suddenly grow a conscience.
But that's what a person does. Like, oh, I can stand on ceremony here.
Or is that the point where our character realizes that this is how the world views him?
Yeah.
Is this how I'm just viewed? I'm just viewed as somebody who's always in need of money, and I don't love my family. And like I said, it's a hell of a time to grow a conscience.
Yep. And
he refuses the money. Now he throws the money back at him.
He does.
Literally.
And
punches him.
And physically assaults him. Which, again, you're watching all this, and as a viewer, you're like, oh, no. Because you're watching the noose is, again, he's back out in the real world, but the noose is being tightened. And he's going to wind up, you can watch this happening. And then I thought this was great. He randomly, he finds the old man. He finds number one.
No. Incorrect.
Oh, pardon me. Number one finds him.
Number one doesn't find him at all. Number one knows where he is.
Of course, yes. Because
we can view this from a completely different perspective when you've seen the film, when you've seen the series.
No, I mean, they know where all these players are. No, they're being but
they know exactly where everybody is.
And in the chat says something very astute, and I wanted to bring this up. She says, Az and Rob, the game continues, even when they aren't in the game, so to speak. And I think you're absolutely right, because gathering contestants is as much a part of the game as anything else. I mean, these people have been playing the game before they even knew they were playing it.
Yeah,
that's why the people
they were auditioning before they even knew.
Yeah, I mean that's why the recruiter, I'll call him the casting director, knows who to sit next to on what train station and say, "Hey, would you like to play a game?"
Would you like?
They've been monitoring all of these people. They probably have analytics, and they're running AI, figuring out, okay, who are the people that are most susceptible. So you are absolutely correct. These people are they're being profiled way before they are ever approached. So that is absolutely true. By the way, we do have some really astute, interesting super chats.
Okay, I mean, we got an hour still. Well, just under an hour.
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to get Carl Bruce says, "Hey Rob, can't wait for your deep analysis of Eternals. Like you, I love the film and its myth. Could shed some light on the second post-credits scene. Well, I can't do that now, but I will say this: look up a character called the Black Knight if you want to know who somebody is, and look up the character the Black Knight, that character's history in the MCU, and specifically also with the Avengers." Craig Lee Lawrence Experience says, "Finally finished the show. Much love to you guys." Now, this is really interesting.
Also, check out Harry Styles dressed as a girl.
Shh. Andy Radart sends in a super chat and says, "Evening, gents. Did you think it was inferred that 456's fall into gambling and debt was as a result of the psychological damage caused by his friend dying right in front of him during the strike, the labor strike?" We didn't even touch on that, really.
Well, that doesn't come until episode 4.
Yeah.
Episode 3, maybe 3 or 4.
I don't necessarily think that's true. I mean, tragedy. Just watching. I mean, maybe, but I don't necessarily think watching somebody get killed during some kind of an uprising leads you to become a degenerate gambler necessarily. Maybe. Well,
I mean, I said earlier in the episode, there is, hints that he had PTSD.
Sure.
And that's because of the riot at the car factory and the death of his friend in front of him. And that, I think that could have. I mean, I think that's what, at the very least, my brain tells me that's what destroyed the marriage.
Right.
He couldn't reconcile what had happened, and that's at least the catalyst that precipitated the breakdown of the marriage.
I'd buy that. Sure.
And I think then it's. I don't think it's too big a leap to think that when you know that your marriage is descending, that you go and you find yourself something to pick you up.
Yep.
And maybe he found gambling as the way to try and pick himself up, and then it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope, and he could have found himself there. So I'm not saying that is how, but I think the show provides you with information for you to construct a narrative around that.
And it relies.
I think Andy's got a. I think that's a fair.
I think absolutely it's a fair point. And that's a great, I think it's a great reading of it all. Lydart sends in a super chat and says, "Good evening, calamari boys. I loved Squid Game, but Alice in Borderland maybe a bit more. Thanks for the recommendation."
Should we do Alice in Borderland afterwards?
I mean, we could, but to me, Alice in Borderland doesn't have the social implications. I mean, it's still a great show, but
it's a fun show. Or maybe just have an episode talking about it being a fun series.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe a good follow-up. I liked Alice in Borderland. I maybe want to go read.
I did find it lighter. Yes, it didn't have the social tones. I don't think it wanted to have the social tones.
No, but it's a cool show.
It's a cool show, and I thought it was fun as hell. Yeah,
yeah, I did too.
It was a nice chaser.
Yeah.
It was a nice chaser to Squid Game. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Andy Radart goes on, one of two. Wondered if you thought the games were a form of cognitive programming. First, anonymously killed. Second, killers stood amongst them. Third, as a team, winning kills the other team. Fourth, they're responsible for a friend's death. Fifth, they tell them the glass can hold two, effectively prompting them to kill to cross. And where does that lead to in episodes 5 and then 6? That's an interesting thought. Was it?
I think each game almost devolves into a more primal instinct.
Right.
Like the second game is you survive. You're responsible for your own survival. In the third game, you have to take a life. You have to survive.
Yep.
The fourth game, you have to kill the person you're closest to. So essentially cutting off all morality.
Yep.
The fifth game, morality's gone. Now it's kill or be killed. Sixth game, it's survival of the fittest. I think there's almost an animalistic devolution in there.
I mean, I would say it could be social programming, but it seems a little ineffective if there's only one person standing at the end of the game. You know, how are you going to program people en masse? I mean, I think we're constantly socially programmed all the time by our modern age, whether it's through marketing, whether it's through. I mean that's part of.
Do you know what a very simple way to do it? Let's do it the way that the show does it. They're horses.
Right.
And how do you make a horse go faster in a race? You got to whip it. Sometimes those horses need whipping, and they whip those horses, and that's as you know. You could reduce it down to that. You were playthings for these VIPs, and that's what they needed to do to make you do something.
Well,
so, yeah.
And what since we're jumping ahead of ourselves, but the idea is, you hear about how if you're incredibly wealthy and you can have everything that you want whenever you want it, you'd be, I would imagine, bored. I mean, unless you're a patron of the arts or you want to build things or create things. I mean, one of the things I find interesting about someone like an Elon Musk character, there's a lot of people that don't like Elon Musk, but at least he's just not sitting in a, bungalow on the beach somewhere or building his own doomsday shelter in New Zealand or whatever. He's like building reusable rockets. He's done things that our American space program couldn't do. And whether he's building it on the backs of underpaid workers or whatever, at least he's doing something, he made his own money, making his own stuff. Whereas if you're part of the idle rich and you inherit a fortune from an old family that you didn't even build, it was familial money or whatever that you were given. I mean, I got the idea that the people that are the old man, I mean, we're just assuming people have watched the show. So the old man is to me probably, who knows how much he built, but it was probably amazing. And he had vast sums of money, at least with all of that he's put himself on the line to play the game, even though he's manipulated it beyond all. He's probably got miniature drones flying around, following everybody or whatever. But it is an interesting. The idea that the wealthy. I think that that the ultra rich toy with the rest of us is I think a common theme, and we actually see it happen here. And I think it's probably true. When you have everything, nothing matters. You have you've won the world. I mean, what is that? Alexander wept when he saw there was no more worlds to conquer. That's what Hans Gruber says in Die Hard. I mean, once you've done that, then what? Like, then what do you do? If you have everything and anything you could possibly dream of, you could have.
Well, he didn't have one thing. He didn't have fun.
That's right. And but it's interesting when they're talking, when they get back together, and the point is made that, well, life out here is more hellish than it is back in the game, because at least in the game you have a chance that you can manipulate, you might be able to win, whereas in the real world there's no winning, at least for the characters.
Yeah, and the the old man did say, "Hey, I beat you in the first game. I finished before you did in the first game. So who knows? I could go on to win the whole thing. And then if he wins the whole thing, according to the guy, can he receive an operation, or is that money there for just be like, I can now make sure that my family is looked after when I pass. So yeah, the hell, to me, the hell was never actually the game. The game was ironically the heaven,
because it was a choice. I mean, like
because it
you
was the
always said.
salvation. The game's the salvation.
Yeah.
The hell was the reality that they lived in. Yeah, and it's such. I think the ending to this episode is just so great, and at the same time, just so disheartening when you just have them all just stood there, you know, in different places in the street, and then the music starts, and the music's so good.
So good.
And the music starts, and then the cars start pulling up, and they just, of their own volition, they know what's happening. I'm going to get in, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to get gassed, and then I'm going to wake up back in the game.
Now, we also have to remember that another point that we're not discussing is, and I you know, this was the story of our police officer, Hwang Jun-ho.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That when 456 initially, when he got back, he went to the police station and telling this outlandish story. And the funny thing is that you think that nobody believes him, but then we find out our young cop, our impossibly young looking cop, Hwang Jun-ho, we find out that because 456 showed him the business card, well, Hwang Jun-ho has seen one before. He's seen a business card like that before involving, it appeared because this cop's brother disappeared and also had a card, the same Squid Game card that 456 had. So our cop believes him, and you find out at the end of the episode that the cop is tailing the van that is taking all of our characters back to the game, back to the Squid Game. And I thought, you know, how did you feel about that? How did you feel about the whole undercover cop aspect of this story? Did you think, did it work for you?
I love it. I love it.
I did too.
By the way, this guy's 30 years old. He looks like 19.
He looks 19. Yeah. Handsome dude.
He ain't gonna crack.
No.
That boy. He gonna be 15. He's gonna look like a don. I liked the mystery because I just liked, because when you get into the game, we are going into Alice in Wonderland type of territory here. Yeah, you know, a lot of the symbolism that we mentioned in the first episode was 100% on purpose.
Yeah,
you know, with the door, you know, the staircases and all that. Apparently, that set was absolutely massive. Was absolutely meant to represent that, and it was done in a way that you could get shots to see people just in completely different directions. And in another episode, we can see that when you go down the corridors, they all lead to these doors, and some of them don't open, and some of them do open, and whatnot. But I just like the fact that this tethers us to a bit of humanity.
Yep.
Because we are literally now just following a group of people playing games, death games, for money. And we have to deal with the struggles of that. But there is somebody who's infiltrating the base who wants to find out what happened to my brother. And not just that, we are also going along that journey because we're just like, what did happen to his brother? Did his brother win? Did his brother die? Was his brother a guy? What does his brother have to do this or anything? And then, that story leads into a very interesting avenue, which we'll get to later.
And what I did like about this is it adds a little, like the whole idea of the undercover cop is a trope. They're giving us a well-worn trope that they rely that the audience gets. They can now play with that trope in interesting ways. The undercover cop story. And what I really loved about this, the beginning of the story, is he's really good. He's a really good and undercover cop that makes a lot of really smart decisions. And I really liked the fact that as he moved, I was really invested in him because he is as smart as he is. And I really enjoyed that because they took that trope, and you'd think certain things might happen, but he is so good at what he does, and I like that about that whole aspect of the story, you know. And it was because they could have just had him be somebody that might have just been in jeopardy and gets captured and interrogated or something, but they didn't go that direction with it. And I mean,
it doesn't really kick off till next week, but
I really
we're going to find that this guy's pretty damn resourceful.
He's resourceful, and he makes his own promotions happen, which I thought was great. And it was through his eyes, again, why this show is smart is because we're finding out a lot about what's going on through the cop's eyes, because the players aren't in a position to tell us, you know, the story of, and so the cop is behind the curtain. And
and I thought it was a clever way to do that.
Yeah. It could have been
always see the front man walking up and down in his, you know, that would get a little bit boring.
Right.
So to have it from it felt almost like you were him and you're sneaking around the back.
Right. And what's interesting is that we want to know, this game is so intriguing, and we're finding out so many different things, but from a narrative standpoint, the characters, unless like you play that old trope, like somebody liked the hot girl and brought her behind the curtain, and like the person running the game's like, hello, my dear, blah, which that would have ruined the show. They can't do something like that. So they're giving us, again, because the narrative is so smart, they're giving us a way into, as he discovers things, we discover things. We're the cop. Once again, the audience becomes the protagonist. And that's why I think all of our best entertainment does that. I mean, you think about movies like Jaws, we're all Sheriff Brody, you know. We're all and Shawshank Redemption, we're all Andy Dufresne. You know, we've gone into and I think that's what makes this kind of narrative so smart. And I think the best narratives, like we said earlier, do that. And it doesn't matter whether you're watching the story of a teenage girl or somebody in Mumbai or somebody in the 14th century. If the story is great, every audience can identify with the protagonist. That's what great movie making does.
Mm-hmm.
So. And
that is where episode 2 ended.
It ends. It ends. And there's a few more people. Terrier from Norway. Terrier says, when Robert fell asleep on his stream this weekend, I was afraid he was getting picked up for the Squid Game. Doop, doop. I should do a video of me just sleeping with the doo 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 doo.
Just get some gas effects to come in.
Yeah. Michael,
hey, don't do that, anyone, please. That'd be terrible.
Michael Storm says, I've always wanted to have a bar as well. I was going to call it the Thirsty Toad and make it like a fantasy pub.
Nice.
Well, I hope that you make your pints a little bit bigger than a standard pint, and it'd be even better. Terrier goes on to say, ultimate pub, kind of like a restaurant where you can bring your dog, but instead you bring a 6-scale figure and it gets its own seat, furniture, and beer.
Wow. And beer.
Isn't that what All American Girl is? Do you have All American Girl in the UK? It's literally, All American Girls are these oversized dolls. They're big dolls, and they also have, at the bigger ones, they've got cafes, and you can get your doll styled. Like, it's almost like it's a store where you can buy these dolls, and then they have a spa day where daughters and mothers can go in. I guess fathers too. I don't want to be, you know, and you can even... No,
daughters and mothers is correct.
I mean, it's just, you can have a spa day. It's pretty crazy, but...
That's shooting some guns.
I remember I didn't know what it was, and I walked by one. I was in Chicago the first time I saw the All American Girl store, and I was like, what is this? And the person I was with goes, let's go in. She was a woman, goes, I'll show you. And she took me, and I'm like, I'm wigged out. Like, you buy a doll and you can, wow, okay. And these dolls were really expensive. They were Hot Toys, and they were really expensive. Yeah. Andrew Matthews goes on to say, the policeman's brother is living in a cheap hotel and has a history of disappearing. Why live like that if? Well, because he's probably been looking for his brother, going off the grid on this long investigation. I don't know. But why? Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe it's, I don't know. I mean,
goes on to say they needed to show that someone would go the extra mile to find a loved one, no matter what they may have done in the past or in the present. That's a good point.
When it comes to its conclusion, just think of the words which were said.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I saw it as not a policeman. I saw it as a brother going after a loved one, going after a brother.
Yeah. Yep. That's how I saw it as too. I mean, that's a narrative shortcut. Why wouldn't you go after a sibling? The sibling disappeared.
I would.
And I think the business cards were such a big clue that you can't oh my God, this is the best lead I've had. I have to follow it up. Says, I still have my American Girl doll.
Nah, there you go.
Of course you do. But yeah, so ultimately, as you've watched this show 5 times now.
Well, I'm on my 5th watch now.
You're on your 5th watch now.
5th watch of the whole show, yeah.
So
crazy enough. It's weird though, isn't it?
Well, there's something so compelling about the show. And like you said, every time you watch it, I mean, this episode has a lot of entertainment. It's funny because these all narrative, filmed narrative has built on what's come before. And there is a language over the 20th century that was developed in terms of how to tell a story cinematically. And that language was sort of irrevocably changed when MTV came in, because music videos could tell stories that a movie would tell in 2 hours and 3 minutes. So
sure. Music
video editorial changed how movies were made forever. But what I love about this show and the long form format, the 9-episode format, is this show can be, and I think a lot of the reason why a lot of these bingeable streaming shows have become so popular is because they're so in-depth in terms of the narrative exploration that they can make with our characters. And if you have a show like this, I think the reason people are like, why is this show such a worldwide phenomenon? And I think it combines.
Watch it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and I think it's first of all, it's got a very compelling, really interesting story that resonates with people on a number of different levels, and it stays true to itself. I don't think that this narrative ever makes a misstep. It never betrays its characters.
Yeah.
It never, and even though great narratives have twists and turns in them, but we also sort of we all know the path that we're walking down. And I think what happens is when in the back of our minds, we know the path and we don't quite know all the twists and turns of that path, but we're vaguely aware of what path we're on. And when something delivers the goods, it's true to the path, but it also gives you surprises in the journey that you weren't expecting.
If I watch like Daredevil or something like that,
right?
Some of it's good stuff, but I often felt finishing a series, I'd be like, man, they didn't have to have that many episodes.
Right.
There was a lot of fluff of nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
There should have been at least 3 episodes, 4 episodes cut off. That should have been 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah.
With this feels like it's the length it is because of it.
I completely agree.
It doesn't feel like there's any fluff, there's any filler. It's 9 episodes, not 10, and it's not an 8. It's 9 because it needed to be 9 because of what was there. It flows so incredibly well, without wasting your time, without having any waste of time, without having any fluff. Everything feels as if it's there for a very specific reason, and you do need it. And I thought that was one of the best things about the show. It is what it is, and it is the length that it is for the reason that it is.
And I think the real success of the show is that the writer-director, obviously he'd been developing it for a long time, this is an uncut. You really got the auteurship behind it. The director also wrote it. It was a story that was very fully realized, and you're seeing there was no. I can't imagine that there was a lot of network notes. This film or this series was so fully realized that you're truly getting a well thought out vision, a singular vision that works. And it's like when you read a great book. You're getting the mind of whether it's whoever's written the book, your favorite author, whoever that may be. If like I remember reading, there's a book by a woman named Donna Tartt, and it was her first novel called The Secret History. And I don't know, somebody recommended it to me, and it wasn't necessarily my normal speed. And I read this book, and it was one of these books that just knocked my socks off. I read this, I was so. It's such an interesting story about these students and this philosophy professor at like Bennington College, or a fictitious version of Bennington College. And I really felt when I read this book, I'm like, wow, this author, and she was young when she wrote it, was in total command of this story, and she grabbed my imagination, and I'm surprised this book has never been made into a movie because it's really hard. They made her story, The Goldfinch, into a film, which is not it does not do the book justice. But I really feel that one of the reasons that this series is so successful is because we're so used to not getting stories that are this fully realized, this well-rounded, because everything is, people are weighing in on notes, there's different cooks in the kitchen. There's people who have to say, well, we need more of this, we need more of that. And seldom do we have auteurship like we see here, where a story, the author, the writer-director is in such command of his story. He's been thinking about it for so long that he really gets it all. And we feel that. And so often we're so used to getting a product that, whether it's Star Wars or Doctor Who or Star Trek, the creators are more interested not in the story and the characters, but in their agenda or in serving some other master. And you can never tell great stories that way. And we're so used to watching, especially with movies and television, compromised visions. Yeah. This is not. This is an uncompromised. And by the way, I could be romanticized. I could be wrong. I mean, the creator it took me so long because he couldn't get it made for the longest time because people are like, what is this? But I really do feel that the success of this show is because of the authorship, that we're truly seeing something that is an auteur vision, and we're getting something like a great novel where the author is in command of this. And it's really hard in this day and age where things cost money and things are expensive, but the show, comparatively speaking, was not.
But that's because it didn't put an agenda ahead of story.
Nope. And you'll always fail when you do that. And look at this story. This story might have an agenda behind it because all stories, people are coming from a certain point of view. But when you allow the story itself and the characters to dictate, and you understand, you allow the audience to infer meaning. It's up to the audience. The audience, a great storyteller assumes your audience is smart, or assumes their audience is smart, and you take that intelligence, knowing your audience is smart, you take them on a journey, and you do not betray the trust they've given you to tell them a great tale. And we don't have a lot of that.
He might have thought, oh, this is a story of how capitalism will destroy all. But because he's left it so open, people can actually take much different things. They say, all right, you can think that, but you do realize that you put your audience, you put your whole contestants in a communist society. So, it's great for people to play with what themes they want to get out of it. Without trying to make this political, but I do have to say this. I think this is a perfect example of why the horrible term now of inclusion and diversity is just one of fabrication. It's fake. It's false. It's a misnomer. It doesn't produce good storytelling. It doesn't produce more stories to tell. Right. Because stories ultimately, to work, have to work on a human level, regardless of who that human is. and that human could be black, white, gay, straight, Korean. It doesn't matter. That human story has to be appreciated and understood and empathized, regardless of who that character is. And this did feel like watching some good, just some good television,
right?
Without any agenda.
I completely agree, and that's what great entertainment. That's what we're all looking for. People that love movies and narrative, great. And we've got a lot of, like, I remember watching the first season of The Sopranos, which to me, The Sopranos was actually a one-season show, the same way that Squid Game, everything they have to leave it open. But when Sopranos was so successful, they continued on, but it was never as successful as it was in that first season because Tony's mother, Livia, was such a big part of that narrative. And of course, they could continue on. You got all these great characters, but the actual narrative with Tony caught between his Uncle June and his mother was what that show was really all about. And Nancy Marchand died, unfortunately, but the show was so popular. It was still a great show. But like Squid Game, it's great that they might do a second season, and maybe it'll be the rare thing, like maybe Empire Strikes Back. It might surpass the original, maybe. But to me, it's why do I would leave this series where it's at. It's wildly successful, so they're going to do another one. But I just see that I don't think that you need another one of these shows. I mean, unless you have,
and I don't think you can recapture the shock or the the level of horror and terror. You can make it gorier, scarier. You can make the games more Saw type of whatever. You're not going to recapture what you got from this series. You'll never recapture that. So I think, sure, have him turn around and walk back, but that's just him now being a defiant person.
Exactly.
He's no longer a sheep. He is now in control of his own destiny. That's what that's saying.
I mean, if I were to continue on and make a second season, the whole point of the Squid Game is it isn't going to go anywhere. There's always going to be people who will play. And that's kind of the message to me. And you could tell that story over and over and over again, but it's the nature of, maybe the Squid Game has always been here. Maybe you'd find out that it was played in the 16th century or the 10th century, and that all the aristocracy, the people that the Bilderberg group or whatever, that they've been having Squid Games for 1,000 years. Maybe it was somebody had this idea in ancient Rome, like, yeah, why do we, let's make this a little bit more exclusive.
Well, we had gladiatorial games.
I know, that's what they're like. Yeah, we'll keep the masses placated, but let's keep something for us. I don't want to sit in an auditorium full of people.
Who knows that it doesn't exist? Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. And if it doesn't, someone's going to make it. Come play the Squid Game.
Yikes.
Stubble McShave says, the biggest World of Time fan in the world, says, you can get back at me for seeing Dune before you saw it. There are theatrical viewings of the first episodes of Wheel of Time in cinemas in several big cities 4 days earlier. Ooh, I might do that. I might live stream just for you, Stubble. That's not a bad idea. By the way, Stubble's in Sweden. We're back to Norway. Terrier's here and says, Squid Rob with gas and music made. Enjoy.
Nice.
Oh, no. Did you already make the meme? Did you put it on Twitter?
No way.
I got to see that. I don't know if that's on Twitter, Terrier. Did you put it on Facebook?
Hang on, I can't see.
Let me see. I'll look. That's pretty funny. I don't know if it's there, but I'm sure if it is. Oh, he sent a video. He sent a video.
You have to retweet that.
Oh my! Well, the video is in. Let's see if it's a TikTok video.
Okay.
It's. I don't know how I can. Maybe I can share this. Hang on. Wow, it's on TikTok. That's pretty clever, I have to say. I don't know how I can share this video. I'll have to, but it's pretty damn fun. It's pretty damn funny.
As long as you get it on Twitter tonight, I don't mind.
I'll put it on Twitter. I'll put it on Terrier. That was can you take that video that you made? I guess it's on TikTok and put it into some other format and send it to me. so I can just share the video. That's great. Andrew Matthews says, after watching Squid Game in Korean, I thought it was better, and 456 sounded like Robin Williams. You've got to watch it in Korean.
Yeah, you got to watch it in its OG. You got to.
Yeah.
Performances are great.
I can't watch foreign movies the only movie that I will ever watch dubbed is Shogun Assassin. The American cut down of the Lone Wolf and Cub movies from the 70s.
Yeah.
Shogun Assassin, because it has the greatest performance by a child actor, even though it's only a voiceover in the history of cinema. That's the only one I will watch. But yeah, it is better. I can't even imagine watching. I watched a little bit of Squid Game in English, and our the crazy lady, I couldn't deal with her, the way the acting. It was too over the top.
Awful. Those them were awful. Absolutely awful.
Really bad. Ian Soforth sends in another super chat and says, a second season is going to be impossible. Also, I'm loving these streams. P.S. Impossible. Well, that's from your mouth to God's ears. Listen, that brings us to the end. I mean, I know you've got to go on another stream, and I think this was a great analysis of episode 2 of this show.
We're trying to get this an hour, so I guess an hour and a half, an hour and 40 is fine.
Pretty good. Now, we're like we did with The Prisoner, we're switching off. Just like next week, we have Hot Toys at noon on Wednesday, noon Pacific time. Mm-hmm. Or actually, no, it'll be different. It won't be. Oh, we'll be the same. Because
it's always going to be noon Pacific time.
Okay, noon Pacific time,
and
then
I think you go through daylight saving this weekend.
Yeah, we end it.
So things are going to be back to 8 p.m. next week, and not 7 p.m. like they've been this week. And
then on Thursday, we're back to your channel at 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Is that what that would be?
We're on to Greenwich Mean Time now. Yeah. So Wednesday, What Toys, 8 p.m. Thursday, Squid Game. Calamari Boys.
Calamari Boys at 8 p.m. That's who we are.
Yeah, and we're doing episode 3, which is a great episode. Well, they're all great. But episode 3 is just like, oh my Lord. Another oh my God type of episode.
And
by the way, Mauler would like to come in on episode 6, please.
Oh, that'd be great. I want to point out that our great graphics once again are done by Jason Spriggs. Jason, Mr. Raygun himself, did these graphics as he did with the Prisoner reviews. I'm going to have to get Jason to do a 3-person frame. I would love Mahler to come in. Would that be on my... I guess it would be on my channel.
It'd be on yours. Yeah, it'd be on yours.
Yeah. Okay, so join Mahler, myself, and Az for episode 6. That'll probably be a barn burner of an episode. I can imagine we'll put some time aside to go long on that one. Because episode 6...
He's got his own... Yeah.
Is he a fan of the show?
Oh, yeah. He liked it. Yeah, he liked it. But he particularly liked episode 6.
Yeah, amazing. All right, then. Well, for everybody, I want to thank my moderators. I want to thank Josh Levesque for being here. I want to thank for being here. I don't know who else. I don't know. I think that's all. Josh and thank you for being here and moderating. Thanks to all the blue wrenches. I want to thank everybody for generously supporting the channel through super chats and tips. Thank you so much. And if you want to send letters to our show, you can go to the Burnettwork.net website, and you can send letters. Just put in the heading Squid Game reviews, or put Calamari Boys, whatever you choose to do.
Calamari Boys.
And we will read your letter on the air. And on that note, I would say to all of you, as I always do, stay away from the Squid Game. And as always,
my channel is HeelsvsBabyFace.
Oh, yes.
Heel versus Babyface.
Yeah, where can people find you, Az?
On HeelsvsBabyFace on YouTube. HeelsvsBabyFace, all one word. Here on YouTube for screams and gleams.
And if you want to continue to party with Az now, you can jump over to where?
Critical Drinkers channel. If you jump to the Critical Drinkers channel, myself, Critical Drinker, Mauler, It's a Gundam, and Sargon of Akkad are all going to be discussing pop culture and what's been going on.
That's a hell of a panel.
I know. I feel like such a fraud.
Sargon of Akkad, I'm a big fan of his, actually.
Yeah, Carl Benjamin.
Carl Benjamin, watching him for years. He was a politician once. He tried to be. It was good.
Well, try to be.
I liked it. I've enjoyed his channel for a long time. All right, then.
Be a heck of a show, yeah.
And you can also follow as underneath. You can see Hot Toys. Find him on Twitter there. And you can find me, of course, on Twitter at BurnettRM if you want to follow me. Or on Instagram. You're on Instagram, too.
I am. Heel_versus_babyface.
All right, then. And on that note, I would say to all of you, as always, have a better day.
Be seeing you.